Check, check. Do you know if Liza's going to do any say anything before I start? You know, if she plans to. I'm just going to start it off. Fine. Liz, I was going to get laryngitis and have it be.
Black and Toby, I guess. We don't want to block Toby. Daryl's probably looking at me like,
I just want to turn it so I can see them, that's all.
oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't see Toby in the photos though.
Oh, got it. So
Toby
now
and
we can
Dan
see them.
are
Oh,
not
it was
in
too
the
far
photos.
over.
It's
I
too
pushed it.
far. We gotta go back.
Too far back.
Yeah.
There's a cable here, though. I don't want to pull.
I'm like, look at Daryl.
How's that? Do you know any administrators going to be here? Just test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. We're going to get started in just about a minute. Just like in class, please turn your technology off. We have some distinguished guests here today, so please turn your cell phones off or on silent. If you're taking notes, that's fine to have your laptop out, just as long as you're not shopping, something like that. We'll get started in about 3 minutes. Thanks, sir.
Man. There we go.
There you go. You guys ready? Everybody ready up there? Everybody, do me a favor. Do they need to do a mic test individually? We're all set? Okay. Yeah. 2 more minutes. Where's that music coming from? Where's that music coming from? Where's Justin? All set? Good morning, and welcome students, faculty, and staff, and distinguished alumni to our 2019 Spring Term Alumni Leaders on Campus program. My name is Lee Eskelson. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Sports, Entertainment, and Event Management. I've been a faculty member on campus here at Johnson & Wales for the past 17 years. Today, I have the privilege and opportunity to moderate a distinguished alumni panel. We are fortunate to have 9 very successful alumni back on campus today. Together, they possess over 75 years of professional work experience that have gathered here after graduation. Please give them a warm Wildcat welcome. So we have a large panel, and so they may not answer every question that I have this morning, so we'll leave time for questions at the end of this panel discussion, and we'll also try to leave some time for some one-on-one if you want to speak to them after the panel is over. So first, alumni, please take a few minutes to introduce yourselves. Please share your major and the year you graduated. And Sean, we'll start with you.
Morning, everybody. My name is Sean Lagala. I'm the Director of Front Office Operations at the Westin Times Square. I was an International Hotel and Tourism Management major here at Johnson & Wales, and I graduated in 2012.
Taylor?
I'm Taylor Coyne. I'm a 2014 hotel lodging alumni. I work at Amadeus IT Group, and I'm strategic accounts, so I'm in sales. And I graduated again in 2015 MBA, and they put me next to my competition at Expedia.
Hi, I'm Furley. I graduated in 2015. I am a market manager at Expedia Inc., and I'm an account manager, which is also in sales.
Tara Warner, TMW Productions LLC, which is an event management and continuity company. I graduated in 2008 with my associates in restaurant management, 2009 with my degree in food service management, and my MBA in 2016 in accounting.
Hello, my name is Tom Cito. I am a 2014 graduate of Food and Beverage Management. I am currently the Assistant General Manager of a restaurant called Yvonne's.
I'm Colleen Marasco, class of 2011 from Sports Entertainment and Event Management, and I am an event analyst with Ticketmaster.
Good morning, Chris Shimkus, Director of Catering Events, Boston Park Plaza, class of, I'm embarrassed, 94. So when we weren't Wildcats back then, we were Griffins back then.
Good morning, my name is Dan Schwartz, Sports Entertainment Event Management, class of 2007. And I am the general manager at the Vets Auditorium here in Providence.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Toby Sanborn. I'm a senior general manager for the Newport Restaurant Group. Specifically, I oversee Hemingway's, the Waterman Grill, and the Boathouse in Tiverton, and I'm class of 1997.
Great, thank you. Please give them a welcome again. Thank you. Okay, alumni panel. Please explain your career path from graduation to your current position, and Toby, we'll go right back to you.
Sure. Excuse me, I came to Johnson & Wales, and I was primarily interested in the lodging industry. I wanted to be a hotel general manager, and during my time here, I worked part-time in restaurants and really kind of fell in love with the food and beverage industry. So while I was in college, I kind of started an early program with a company called the Back Bay Restaurant Group, and I became a assistant restaurant manager with them. Stayed with them for about 10 years, and then moved up to a general manager position, and then off to Capitol Grill, and then eventually my current position with the Newport Restaurant Group.
Thank you. Dan?
I originally came out to Johnson & Wales for culinary arts and kind of a different story. From there, I started working at the Providence Performing Arts Center here downtown while I was a freshman in college here. That kind of opened my eyes to the entertainment industry and the sports entertainment world. So upon my finishing the associate in culinary, switched to entertainment event management. And fortunately, upon graduation, I was offered a full-time job with the Providence Performing Arts Center at one of our sister properties in Fort Myers, Florida. So I went down to Fort Myers to the Barbara B. Mann Performing Arts Hall as the director of operations. That was a traditional Roadhouse theater. We did everything from the national tours of Wicked, Radio City Christmas Spectacular, to all the concerts and comedians. And I was down there for 5 years. And then in 2012, I was then offered a promotion to come up here to the Vets, which is also managed through PPAC, to manage that building as a general manager, which I still am today.
Thank you.
Good morning. As I said, I graduated in 94. And first thing I did is I reached out to JWU alumni and started working at Foxwoods when it first opened. Front office, so I did the front office route, did the sales route, did a stint in Florida for about 8 years at the Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center, mostly in catering, worked for Hyatt Hotels, and then moved back about 5.5 years ago to join Boston Park Plaza. So it's great to be back home and back in Boston.
First job I had after graduation was I worked part-time at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in their customer service team for about a year while I was job searching, and then the first real gig that came along was a seasonal position at a concert venue in Newport called the Newport Yachting Center, which evolved into a full year-round position. So I was there for about 3 years, and then moved on to Ticketmaster.
So I was born in restaurants. Yeah, I was that kid. My mom and dad had me. They were short-staffed. And then I started doing everything. Really fell in love with it, so I went to school for it. So I cooked at Blue Ginger Sushi Ron, which is in Sausalito, California. Then I came back, worked for the family business, realized that that's kind of dangerous. And then, yeah, I got into Capitol Grill, Del Frisco's, and now I'm the AGM over at Yvonne's.
So when I graduated back in 2009, I went to work for Compass Group in Chicago for about 3 years. Did a lot with catering. I was the assistant director of dining services out there for DePaul University, Dominican University, as well as Elmhurst College. Later on in my career, I ended up getting involved with the National Association of College and University Food Services, or NACOFS, with their regional conference. Did their volunteers and helped coordinate the event. Realized that this was what I wanted to do for pretty much the rest of my life with business events. And then I also joined Rotary International, which is a service organization planning events for my club as well as fundraising for them, and found a unique niche in the Rhode Island market that there's really no one to support small to medium nonprofits with events or sponsorship development. So then decided that I wanted to start my own business, and here I am today.
So I majored in travel and tourism, and I was kind of going through an identity crisis where I didn't want to be in the hotel industry and I didn't want to be a travel agent, and I was really looking for a good balance there, and I was involved in National Society of Minorities in Hospitality here on campus, and that's where I met a lot of great recruiters and really learned about both sides of the industry. And fortunately, I was connected to Expedia Group through some really great contacts here at Johnson & Wales, and I've been there since. I started as a market associate and made my way up as a market manager, and I work with the hotel lodging supply in New York City, so it's really a great balance between the two.
So I started as a manager in training at Hay Creek Hotels in my native New Hampshire, live free or die. And I ended up working mostly at independent hotels afterwards. I realized I was in the housekeeping department, that housekeeping wasn't necessarily for me. I cleaned 1,000 hotel rooms, was one of the milestones you had to hit. And I kind of networked with colleagues and ended up moving in with my Johnson & Wales roommate in college in New York. So I worked and did a stint in New York. That's where I started using hotel software, and that's what I'm in today. Is I sell hotel software at Amadeus.
So I started my hotel career in college while I was at Johnson & Wales. I know you were all doing the same thing with your JWU Fridays, right? You're all working on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's what I did. And then when I graduated, I was accepted into the Marriott Management and Training Program. It's now the Voyager program. I did that, and then I started my official hotel career at the Renaissance Times Square in room operations, and then from there I went to the Marriott downtown as a food and beverage manager. Had no idea what I was doing, had no food and beverage experience, but I did something different, great experience. And from there, Marriott had this new brand that they were trying to get off the ground, Edition Hotels. I was a part of the New York Edition, which was the third Edition hotel to open in the world, and had 2 years there. The brand was really trying to figure out what it was. Was it luxury? Was it lifestyle? Was it luxury lifestyle? So really played an integral role there. And then I left and I went to the Starwood side of things, post Marriott Starwood merger, as the assistant director of front office operations at the Westin Times Square. And then I was asked to come back to Edition Hotels. I just recently was a pre-opening trainer with the corporate team for the Times Square edition, the 9th edition to open in the world. And now I had just started my new role as director of front office operations at the Westin Times Square. So that's where I'm at.
John, that's a great, excuse me, that's a great segue into my next question, which is, can you give us a brief background on your duties and responsibilities in your current position, and what is a day in the life in your job?
A day in the life, I wear roller skates all day long. So the Westin Times Square, 873 rooms. We run a 97% occupancy for the year. I manage just in my department alone 80 union employees, 12 managers, 4 supervisors. So you can imagine there's always someone that has an issue or an opportunity that needs to be addressed, and then throw the guest opportunities on top of that. So I do a lot of very hands-on with the union, very involved with the business agent, my union delegates, the day-to-day, as well as managing my budget, productivity, and really just managing, we like to call it the three-legged stool. So my associate engagement, my financials, guest engagement to really help the hotel be successful, as well as my department.
So I worked at Newmarket Inc., and we got acquired by this company called Amadeus out of Madrid, and we sell Delphi, for those of you in the industry. And we recently brokered a deal with Hilton to do a 5-year rollout of Delphi. So it's all hands on deck. They have to be implemented by 2020. So I'm on the strategic accounts team. My account is Hilton. Also, we have a small thing with Kimpton IHG. So I have to every day interface with contracts, support, finance. Sales and finance don't historically work well together, so we're trying to extend all branches. But I'm extremely busy. My days are long, but very enjoyable.
So I work with the hotel supply in New York City. So all the hotels you see on Expedia.com, those are our partners. And essentially a day-to-day is going to meetings with Director of Revenue Management, anyone who's really invested in making revenue for the hotel. And what happens is that Expedia.com is usually a segment of the hotel. And my goal is to work with the hotels and making sure that we're selling at the right price point, that we're bringing in the right type of guests for the right length of stay at the right booking window. And there's a lot of strategy involved, and it's really working with our partners to make sure that their goals are completed and making sure that we're optimizing on that relationship. So there's a lot of business lunches, there's a lot of dinners, there's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of just like really cultivating that relationship and making sure that everyone is happy, we're all in it for the same reason, so making sure that the end goal is a positive goal.
President and CEO is a fancy way for a small business owner to say you do everything. And when I say everything, I mean IT, HR, sales, marketing. I mean, it's really, I wear a lot of hats every single day. But right now, what I'm trying to do as I hire more people on is to focus on growing the business and strategic planning for down the road. So where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? And trying to bring on new clients each and every day.
So as assistant general manager, my job is to control our budget, control the number of staff we have, take care of all the fires that go on in the restaurant business, and try to put out great food and exceed guest expectations.
As an event analyst at Ticketmaster, the majority of what I do revolves around on sales and when tickets go on sale, and ensuring that that's a smooth experience for the fans buying on our website. So we support what we term the nationally supported events, which are the higher demand tours and single one-off events that are expected to create a lot of traffic on Ticketmaster.com. We kind of serve as the bridge and the hub for a few other Ticketmaster teams. That being the product teams, who are the really, really techie guys who build our website and create like our software products that our clients use, our clients being the venues and box office managers, as well as the client support teams who are assigned to those clients to support them and make sure that their events are ready to go for each of their venues.
Oh, so as the director of catering and events, every day is completely different, which is why I love catering and sales and whatnot. So every day is different, depends on the clients. It could be a group in-house, could be a 1,000-person fundraiser, it could be, there's a million things. So of course we have to do the financials, the budgets, and the forecast and all that stuff. I have a team of 14 people, so a lot of my day is putting them in the right position to succeed and handling questions with them, going on sales sites with the clients, really booking business and making sure I'm setting up the operations team for success. But I think what we do is one of the funnest things in the entire hotel, which is I think we bring the life to the hotel, being the event side of things. It's always something different. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of really, a lot of great people in the industry, a lot of great people just in general. So you deal with high-end entertainment, various speakers. This is very odd for me to be up here. Usually I'd be in the back over there watching all of this and making sure it was set up. But yeah, it's a great area to get into. And if you want to get a good work-life balance and you can work your way up to catering and sales, I would definitely encourage that.
Well, hello again. As the general manager of the Vets Auditorium, I have a general understanding and involvement of every department that I have to see in the building, whether it's programming, marketing, box office, production, administrative, security, front of house staff. I have to have weekly staff meetings with all of my department heads. I have to have a hands-on involvement essentially in everything, approving and overseeing financial budgets, putting together the budgets and all that fun stuff. But as you kind of alluded to, it is a fun industry. It's a lot of work, but you know, when you're going in early in the morning and you're putting out fires and dealing with artists that might not be happy with something and calling the caterer because they forgot their, you know, vegan whatever. You know, and then you see the patrons come in, and you know, when you do a show like Sesame Street Live, and you see these little kids coming to experience a live show for the first time, it really kind of opens your eyes up to what we're doing and all this hard work that we're putting into it. So, I mean, my job really is to kind of just work with all of my different department heads to kind of make sure the building keeps running. And specifically, I also oversee all capital. Since I started there, we've done about $15 million in restoration. But I've had to kind of oversee everything from painting every little nook and cranny to, you know, every little addition and light bulb that was put into that building. So, a lot of fun.
Primarily, I have 9 direct reports, so that's basically a management and chef team that reports to me for our largest restaurant. And then other responsibilities, I have 2 other properties that I give guidance to the general manager and their teams as well. But a lot of my job is communication, training new managers that come through our company training program. I'm proud that the last 3 general managers in our company are all promoted from assistant general managers that worked under me. And then you have the typical restaurant obligations as well. So for about, I would say at least 30 hours of my week is spent in the dining room, meeting guests, making sure staff is doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's a big marketing and procurement part of my job as well, making sure that as we do menu changes and tabletop changes, that it's brand appropriate and that we're purchasing, you know, the freshest ingredients from local vendors. Working with chefs and going on trips for research and development is probably one of the funnest things that I do. But basically, it's you know, the day-to-day operations of running a restaurant.
Thank you. So Toby and Dan both hit on something that I'd like to go back at the panel, and not everybody has to answer this because some of you already did, but what's fun about your job and what's not fun about your job? Because we know there's both, and everybody, you know, most people say, oh, I just want to do this job because it's fun, but there's no such thing as a job that's fun and doesn't also have some stuff that you don't like doing. So some of you have already answered that, so just kind of give me one of these if you want to talk. Go ahead.
We all work in one of the most exciting industries in the world. You know, looking at what we do from the outside, I think it can look very glamorous at times, and it does have its glamorous moments. Don't get me wrong. I think we can all agree with that. But you know, at the end of the day, we work long hours. We work, you know, nights, weekends, holidays. You know, there to take care of the guest or the client or whatever we're doing. You know, you really have to love what you do. I love what I do, so every day going to work is fun for me. I try to find the positive things when I'm, you know, sitting at an arbitration and the union business agent is screaming and yelling and you're just sitting there looking at them, not nodding your head yes or no because you don't want them to say that you agreed or disagreed or anything like that. So for me, the union aspect, although exciting and, you know, it makes me a better leader. Some days I would just rather not deal with it and take care of a guest, to be honest with you. But again, I love what I do, and you have to really love what you do to find the positive in everything. And there's always going to be some things that are more fun than others, but you just have to really, you know, dive in, grab the bull by the horns, and really like what you do.
Who else? Go ahead.
I love what I do. Just to that point, I actually don't work weekends and holidays, and I have a very 9 to 5. At 5 o'clock, I'm clocked out. I don't answer emails. So that's what's fun about my job. I do have a very flexible time. I do have a very flexible job, and it's part of like the very innovative part of the hospitality industry where we are starting to acknowledge that people who are coming into the industry do need flexible work, and we're kind of paving the way towards that, just like making sure that when you guys get into the workforce, you do have a quality of life, and making sure that you can look to other companies to look to as when you're talking to your managers, like this company leaves at 5 o'clock. And maybe that's not the best scenario for a hotel. I mean, it is a 24-hour establishment. Exactly. But it is fun to look at my side of the tech industry, my side of the industry, where we have a really great balance where we do get to divulge into that segment, but I do get to leave at 5 o'clock. And to that point, it is difficult to work with our partners who are in the hotels maybe 13 hours a day and trying to get where they're coming from and figure out what exactly is the communication from a hotel standpoint and how do we work with them on our side.
Fun, not fun. Anybody else? All right, we'll move on. So an issue that most students ponder prior to graduation, especially this time of year, is how and where will their careers begin after graduation, and the importance of their first job. With that in mind, could you please explain how and where you were hired for your first job after graduation, and did your first job help you set the path for your current career? Toby, we'll start with you.
Sure. So my first job post-graduation was with a restaurant in Boston on Newbury Street. And ultimately, I was put in a management training program. So I learned how to run a kitchen for 5 weeks and then how to run a dining room for 5 weeks. And then I was placed in the restaurant as an assistant manager. And I would say that my advice to graduating students is definitely gain some experience while you're at college. I think the ability to have contact with people from all over the world and different people, different segments of life is important, and being able to approach people with kindness and good hospitality is really important if you're going into the hospitality field. And then obviously just being able to learn everything that you can and being humble about that. And it's just amazing how much information and intellect that you'll collect over your first 5 years out of college. And those things that you learn will just build a much better leader when you're ready for your next promotion and your promotion after that.
Great. Dan?
For me, my first job after graduation was in Florida, running a theater in Fort Myers. I was in completely way over my head when I first got down there. I was fortunately able to get promoted from the company I was working with here in Providence, but going down at 21 years old and having over 200 staff members you're responsible for, in which 90% of them had kids older than me. It was kind of like, here's this young kid out of college, how's he gonna tell me what to do? It was a huge learning opportunity for me. It was a lot of fun. But it was stressful, and I always say, I look back on that time, like my first year down there, and kind of just say, like, just take a step back and just enjoy each moment, and look at the positives. Although you might have union issues or issues with an artist or tour manager that's cranky coming in off the bus, just look at those as, look at the positive in every situation, and whether you're hands-on, having to clean a bathroom or take a trash can out because somebody forgot to do it. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you, and we all kind of have to chip in to make sure that at the end of the day, the patron and the guest has the best experience possible. It's looking at all those little things you're doing and looking at the big picture. And I think if you look at those positives and don't get caught up on some of the mundane tasks you might be doing, it'll kind of just help you kind of grow to the next level. And people do notice that, and it helps you achieve what that end-all goal is if you have a positive attitude.
Chris?
Sure. My first job out of Johnson & Wales was at Foxwoods, as I mentioned in the introduction. And I had written a letter back then to the front office manager who was an alumni. So that's kind of how I started the front office route. And then was exposed at Foxwoods to many different aspects of hospitality. So I ended up getting promoted after, I think it was about 8 months. I ended up going into the sales side of things. But my biggest piece of advice would be for your first job, do the extras. Be the best you can be at that individual job, like be the best if you're gonna be a front office manager, a front desk agent, it doesn't matter, whatever your position is, be the best at it and do the extras, and that's what's gonna stand out. Everybody's gonna be expected the higher up you go in your career. The same skill sets, everybody graduates, everybody has a degree, everybody has X amount of years of experience, but it's the people that do the extras, and it's gonna come down to you as an individual. Whether everybody says whatever they wanna say as far as degrees and whatnot, it's gonna come down to you as a person and how you present yourself and networking. So that's truly what makes it in the real world as you get out there. But yes, this sets your foundation, but as you get out there and you develop up, you're gonna be in a room interviewing for a position, and there's gonna be about 20 other people that have exact same experience as you. So just know who you are as a person, be genuine, and I think somebody said earlier, be kind. Don't be one of those people that just tries to do whatever they can to advance. Team players, people that do the extras, that's what's gonna set you apart.
My career path started right from the internship that I completed senior year here. And that internship was in the marketing department at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. And everything from that point till now absolutely is a direct link from that one internship. And I wasn't even really that keen on marketing in general. So my advice to you would be don't necessarily shy away from a topic or a part of the industry that you don't believe that you're immediately attracted to, because that's going to open the doors for you, and that's going to give you the perspective that you might not otherwise have sought out. So from my internship at the Dunkin' Donuts Center, they had the opening and the need for another representative in guest services. That was a part-time position I took right after graduating, and I still maintain really, really good contacts with the Dunkin' Donuts Center to this day. They're a major part of my career, and my boss from my internship actually had the connection to get me my first full-time job as a box office supervisor at the Newport Yachting Center. She had worked in a different industry, related a little bit in radio, with the general manager there at the time, and they needed some additional help for their box office, for their concerts. And I said, yeah, sounds interesting. So went down there, worked there for a few years, and unfortunately things changed, priorities changed with our parent corporation, and that job ended. And we had used Ticketmaster as our ticketing software in Newport, and obviously they knew, our representatives at Ticketmaster knew what was happening with our venue. And so I called them up and I said, look, I don't know, what kind of opportunities you have, but just keep me in mind. And lo and behold, there was an opening, and I applied and got that role. So absolutely, to echo Chris, I'd say prove yourself in every position that you're in, every opportunity that you get. Be that person who is trustworthy and reliable, and the right people will think of you when they have a need to fill, for sure.
So my first job after graduation, Johnson & Wales, a couple of the professors really pushed me to apply for a company called Darden, and so I did, and got in with Longhorn Steakhouse, and it really polished me up because I had a mouth on me, and you couldn't really have a mouth on you when you work for some big corporate restaurant like Darden. And initially I said I wanted to work for Capitol Grill, and they said, no way, essentially looked at me and said, you're too young. And so they told me I had to prove myself over at Longhorn Steakhouse. And that really pushed me to try to be the best I could be. And within about a year, they brought me over to Capitol Grill after that. And I think it was a really important part of my career where I got to learn how to do things the right way when I got that job. And it really helped me.
My first job was with Chartwells, which is the division of Compass Group North America out in Chicago, as I'd mentioned before. How I got that opportunity was working through my professors and their networks with Compass Group. I actually listened to them, and I would say, listen to your professors who are saying, apply early, apply often, start networking. If you're a freshman, start networking your freshman year, your sophomore year. If you're expecting to go out into the world and just get that big job and start interviewing in like April of the year that you're graduating, that's not gonna happen. You're probably not gonna get a job until probably the fall of that year, if not later on. So that's just kind of a real world perspective of just make sure that you're out there and you're really being aggressive about trying to get a job before you graduate.
So never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd end up at Expedia, especially recruited out of Johnson & Wales. They were here for a career fair, but I had no intention of interviewing with them. The way that happened was I worked closely with Carly and Akansha at the time, who were in career development, and I worked closely with them because of NSMH and my involvement with the university, and I did have that visibility towards them and that really good relationship. And I remember Akansha came to me and she's like, you should apply for Expedia. I was like, I don't even know what they do. I'm not like, I've been essentially told I should do hotels, or being a travel and tourism major, I should probably go into a travel agency, or I just had this perception of what I should be doing after school. But I gave it a try. I listened to that advice, and it turned out to be a position that I didn't even know existed. I was a market associate and we're tasked with really developing these relationships, and through relationships, I mean, we really do drink a lot. There's a lot of drinking. So if one advice would be make sure that you can handle your alcohol when you go out into the professional industry. But and then now as a market manager, I'm tasked with managing those relationships, and I'm the face of Expedia, and I'm tasked with that perception hotels have of me, and that really came through being curious, right? It takes a lot within all of us to be able to go to our managers and say, I am curious about the next position. I do want to go into the next position. How can I work really hard right now to get there? But you need to start that conversation. No one's gonna assume that you just want to be, you want to go far in life, or you want to get to this director position. And no one's going to put that stress on you, or no one's gonna really make you take on a responsibility you're not showing you want to take. So my biggest piece of advice is be curious and just lead with positive intent, because that comes a long way if you're showing them that you want to work hard and you're really driven to put that work behind it, but in a positive way. There's, especially now in the hospitality industry, we're looking to essentially change it all up and just make sure that when employees are happy, the guest is happy, and that's a huge focus right now.
So I started in an MIT position, and I worked at the Exeter Inn in Exeter, New Hampshire, right next to Phillips Exeter Academy. And my piece of advice is understand what you don't like and try to find it quickly. I worked in housekeeping, and I didn't like that department. And then I worked in front office, and that one was pretty good, but it took me a while to discover that my passion was sales. So I'm currently in sales, and I'm loving it, but definitely try to discover quickly what you don't like.
So I went from the Providence Marriott downtown at 1 Orm Street to 2 Times Square, which was the Renaissance Times Square, and my head spun, right? Providence, everything was wonderful. Everybody loved to be at work. The hotel life was great. And then I got to the Renaissance Times Square, and it was Union, one of the busiest intersections in the world. So that's where my first job was post-graduation. And some of the other panelists have touched upon it. It's all about forming relationships. In that first job, do the extra work, go above and beyond. Someone's going to hire you and get you, you're going to get your job, but no one's going to build your career for you, right? That's up to you. You can have one job and be in the same job for a long time and just do enough to get by, or you could really go above and beyond and make a name for yourself. And that's up to all of you. Nobody is going to make a name for you, right? Your reputation is up to you, whether you're a hard worker or not, whether you achieve results or not. You really have to want to have a successful career. And like someone said, be nice, right? Be nice. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice, and people will remember that. People will always remember how you made them feel. And forming those relationships is so important in your first job, because the people that you report to in your first job are going to move up also, right? So when you're ready for your next job or 3 jobs down the road, they're going to be very, very successful, right? Even more successful than they were when they hired you the first time, and they're going to come back and want to hire you again. So always be the person. Pride yourself in being the person that someone calls for a job, and really position yourself to be in that position, and you'll go far.
Great answers. So we're going to bounce around a little bit on this one. Just raise your hand if you want to answer it. So if you can think back to your days in the classroom, and I know we're in the spring term here, and everybody's thinking, oh man, another class, especially with Eskelsen, it's tedious. But if you could think of the courses that you took when you were here at Johnson & Wales, what courses do you think prepared you the best for your career? And what courses, looking back, do you wish you could have taken or should have taken to help you where you are today? And we'll bounce around on this one. Just give me a wave and we'll go right to you. Go.
So the one that helped me out a lot, especially going on the events theme, was sales, meeting, and event management. The class was built all around, actually, I saw Professor Zakili before, but he was my professor, and he basically took a city in the United States and a name of an association, picked both out of a hat, and then you and your partner had to create a conference in that particular city with that particular association. that kind of built the foundations for my interest in events, and kind of in the back of my mind, I knew that I was always going to get into events somehow from food service. But that would be the most effective one for me. The one that I wish I would have taken was negotiations. That would have been helpful in reading over contracts. I got more of that in my law classes, but especially early on in your career, you really don't have a lot of experience with that, especially even buying a car. You know, that's a life skill that helps you out in. So I wish I would have taken negotiations.
My favorite class was negotiations. So then it really sparked this curiosity within me, where as I was learning about the process of negotiation, yeah, we would think that negotiation is just the back and forth, but there really is a strategy to it, especially in an industry where you are doing a lot of contracts and there are certain expectations from a certain group, and you have your own expectations, and you really have to find that middle ground, and that does take a lot of strategy and relationship, and that class really stimulated me as to, like, that's when I knew whatever I was going into, it had to involve some sort of negotiation, because that's what sparked the most curiosity in me. And what I wish I really took was revenue management. Just from a strategy standpoint, it took a while to really do those trainings at work, and thankfully Expedia does do a lot of trainings revolving like revenue management, but I wish I had that base coming into my job and really knowing how to see what hotels are seeing, or seeing that perspective from their side just from the very beginning.
Who else would like to answer? Toby.
Micro and macroeconomics. No, just kidding.
Hated them or you loved them?
I did not like those classes. Looking back, my favorite and most class that influenced the most was actually Pat Bowman. There she is, right there in the back. Is it food service that it was called?
Food service operations.
Yeah, food service operations. So I entered a hotel program and never really took any restaurant classes. But in food service operations, I don't know if you've all taken it or not, you really kind of learn the symbiotic relationships that a manager has with a chef, with cooks and servers, and you all have to really be on the same page to be effective in the restaurant industry, because there's so many different pieces. But we were like a family in that class, and we were very much supportive of each other. It was a great class, great professor. So.
Anybody else want to answer that?
I believe this course isn't technically offered anymore, so I've heard recently, but it was a class basically about current events and tying happenings in the news or within the industry in general back to how it can affect what your potential job is. And there was, do you guys remember this? There was like 6 criteria we had to like explain it in terms of, and how that would affect your eventual job. And what it really did was gave an imprint of the importance to look to general events and saying, well, all right, that could have a trickle-down effect to me. And that's definitely something that fuels the need that I feel to this day of staying on top of news in general, definitely technology news. That's never a bad thing to stay abreast of. And just seeing how various events can affect you. A lot of, legal matters and different laws in your state, and general worldwide events that may have an effect on developing technology or sales or basically seeing things through a specific lens. So that class I thought was really, really valuable, because it made you think pretty critically. The other class that I loved, and no surprise, I guess, is the ticketing class with Professor Eskelsen. And I think I didn't know it at the time sitting in that class that would be a potential career path. But when the opportunity for a box office position came about, I said, you know what, I did really enjoy that class. It's a very unique part of the industry, and I think it's really important to be exposed to that in school so that you can see how it touches many, many facets, if not all, of a live event.
Anybody else?
besides all the hands-on internships and so forth, I really enjoyed FSM 4060 as a hotel student to see what it was like to work in a kitchen and run a restaurant. And like going back to what I said about sometimes it's not always glamorous, right? In FSM 4060, you were taking out the garbage, you were washing the dishes, and those simple skills that people do every day, it really puts into perspective, and you value their jobs more, right? Because once you're actually in the workplace, you know, sometimes you might have to roll up your sleeves and take out the trash, as someone said, or help wash the dishes. And I learned a lot from that class, and we were a very close class. Dr. Van Landingham, I believe, was the professor. And then all of I took so many classes with Professor Dale Silva, so she'll always have a special place in my heart. But she great classes here at JWU.
Great. Anybody else? So I want to just focus on two people up here first, Taylor and Tara. You both have graduate degrees. Could you talk a little bit about how a graduate degree has helped you, and what courses in your graduate degree do you think that you took that you think helped even better prepare you for where you are today? I didn't leave anybody out. Are they the only two that have? I think yeah, go ahead, Tara.
So I had a little bit of a different experience with my grad degree. I actually worked, I believe it was 3 or 4 years before I actually went back to school. I know the trend now is, you know, you graduate with undergrad and you go right into your master's degree. And I have no regrets in working and then going to it. I thought that I got more out of it that way. Your grad degree is an experience. It's not something that you just put on your resume and you just, you know, another notch on the belt type of thing. It's one of those things where you have to be immersed in the curriculum. You have to understand and relate to the classroom discussions. So my recommendation would be, if you're really unsure about going to that next step, if you're on the fence about working or going for a graduate degree, go into the industry, work a little bit, figure out what you really want to do, because your mind's going to change as soon as you graduate with your undergrad degree. I was also very fortunate that my employer actually helped subsidize my education. So that would be my other recommendation is there's employers out there that have assistance. If you can link up with a program like that, that's fantastic, because I know that like I had student loans and I'm still paying them off for my undergrad. And with my graduate degree, I was able to pay in cash, which was very cool. But that would be my recommendation is just make sure you really think through what you want to do for the first 10 years of your career, because that's really going to affect you down the line.
Thank you. Great answer.
Yes, backing off of Tara, I did a 4+1, so I did it in 1 year, and I also worked in Res Life. I was the GA of Harborview in 2015. So that kind of made it financially feasible. So I would just say as my piece of advice to you guys is if you can do it in 1 year and 2 summers, or if you can, you know, work for the university, that takes a big dent off of it. So it made it feasible for me, and I did it right after undergrad. So some people work in the industry and then take MBA. I think I got a lot out of it because I work in projects every day with this big Hilton project, and it's heavy project focused. But either way, you could benefit if you go into industry or if you go right into MBA.
I just want to add one more thing too. Your grad degree really makes you think more strategically. It's very analytical, and I don't think you get that a lot in your bachelor's degree or undergrad degree. So that really helped me, especially being a small business owner, of critically thinking, where do I want to set myself up? And I think if you are going to be an executive leader in a company, you need those skills in order to run the company. So that would be my advice too, is if you're planning on doing some type of executive leadership position, grad degree would be the way to go.
Great answers, thank you. We talk a lot about internships here. We harp on it. We say you have to do an internship, you have to do it, and some of them we'd actually prefer that they do too. Can you talk, and we can bounce around on this one too, can you talk a little bit about where you did your internship and what kind of experience you had and how you think that either helped you understand what you want to do in your career, or in some cases, you decided that's not what you wanted to do and you went in a different direction. So who wants to start? Anybody can start. Go ahead.
So my internship here was when G Adventures was in Providence, and it's part of the travel and tourism curriculum. And working at G Adventures, it it wasn't travel, but because their culture is so laid back and it was all about having fun while really making sure you're working hard. It was a very huge work hard, play hard culture. And I enjoyed it so much that I knew culturally that was where I wanted to go in the future. Whether it was or without G Adventures, I knew that wherever I wanted to go, I wanted the culture to have an emphasis on just having flexibility, just realizing that people have a life outside of work, making sure that the experience inside the office was an enjoyable one. And that's what really ticked me off to really learning about what culture in the workplace is. I don't think that's something we talk about enough. It's not, I think there's this culture just like working really hard and making sure that you're putting your all into the company, but what's the company giving back to you is what really resonated with me as far as the internship. So that really set me up to think when my interview process, I was interviewing my employees, or I was interviewing my interviewers and asking them questions about the culture in their office and really putting the pressure on them to make sure that they were also giving me what I wanted as an everyday experience. And I think that's something that millennials are doing more and more, just like challenging the status quo and making sure that wherever you are working, you enjoy working there, because that's where your productivity is really going to rise and be optimized in.
Who'd like to go next? Anybody? Go ahead, Dan.
I did my internship down at Disney. I don't know if anybody here has done the Disney College program. Love it or hate it, I had like the best experience possible. I was working event operations at Magic Kingdom, middle of July, dressed up in a long button-down, sweating to death. But I think it's what you can take out of it, no matter what you're doing in your internship or where you are. It's just the little things that you can learn, especially as a student or a college student looking to, in the very near future at that point, go out into the real world. You know, just little things like they call like the Disney point, like the two-finger point, not using one finger. There's things that I still implement now with all of our staff training at the theater that I learned at Disney. You know, they had like the Disney scoop, no matter which level you are, no matter how high you up are in management. If you see something on the floor, you pick it up and you put it in a trash can. Things like that, it's just, you know, the what do they call it, emergency guest recovery. Like if a kid drops his popcorn, like no matter who you are, you can go up to a popcorn cart and get him a new popcorn. You know, things like that, you don't really might not be involved with it every day during your internship, but it's things that you're observing during your training and the things that you're able to observe down there that you can then, at some point in your career down the road, implement that. So it's like now when I have all of our front of house staff training, it's I say if a kid drops a soda or a guy drops his beer or a woman drops her beer or wine, just get him a new one, no questions asked. You know, there's enough markup on that stuff that we can afford to give them another one. And those are the experiences that last a long time. We always hear about the negative things in our industry, you know, this wasn't that, this wasn't that. But when you actually are able to really create that special experience, especially now when people are spending hundreds of dollars a night to stay in a hotel or, you know, hundreds of dollars for tickets to a show, they're not doing that every night. It's not like going to a movie where they can go every Friday night or every Saturday. They're making an investment to come, so it's those little experiences that, you know, for me, I was able to learn during my internship and implement them, you know, 15 years later in my career that I think were really important. So I say, you know, look for an internship that you really can see yourself learning and gaining the most from. I mean, I have people that have called me looking to do internships at the theater, and it's like, you're not gonna gain anything based off of, not even at Johnson & Wales, but the programs or what they were studying. It's like they were just looking to do an internship, just say they did an internship and, you know, finish their requirement and graduate. But, you know, there's so many opportunities out there in this country and wherever you wanna go that look for something that's really key that you can actually benefit from and learn something from. So that's my
Great remarks. Tom, were you going to say something?
So I did my culinary internship over at a restaurant called Blue Ginger. And at that time, they said they weren't really trying to hire anyone anyone that wasn't a senior. And I got in because of some of my connections with Johnson & Wales chefs. And it was one of the coolest experiences because I looked at Ming Tsai. He had just gone on the next Iron Chef season 3, and I was like, this guy's doing everything I want to be. And then I was like, who am I to be able to work in this kitchen? And just walking in there, everyone had so much passion, and everyone that worked on the line just really truly loved what they did at the end of the day. And that's something that really resonated with me and where I am today. So every day I try to hire someone, if I am hiring, to hire them based on passion and try to create that team that wants to help each other build and be successful.
Great answer. Go ahead.
I did my internship my sophomore year at the Providence Marriott downtown, and it turned into a job for me while I was here at school. And it really taught me the ins and outs of the hotel business. I did everything there: housekeeping, front office, food and beverage. I rotated through all the various departments. I went through their first renovation with them back then. Now I stayed there last night. They're going through a $40 million room renovation. I'm very loyal. I won't stay anywhere else. So fire alarms going off all night in construction. I was there. The dog was not happy. But I really took advantage of that internship, and Johnson & Wales helped me get that internship. Karen Miller really set me up to do my internship at the Providence Marriott because I only wanted to work for Marriott. I had my mind set. And just advice that I could give to all of you, it's never too early. You know, if there's any freshmen or sophomores in the room, go to the career fair, right? If you have your mind set on a company, it's usually the same recruiters that are here, right? Go to the career fair, introduce yourself, say hello. They might not remember your name, but they'll remember your face. And that'll put you so much more ahead of everybody else when it comes time for graduation. They'll remember your face, they'll remember that you were interested, and just do as many internships as you can through the university and on your own to really gain that experience for when you graduate. You'll be so much more ahead of everybody else.
Anybody else? All right, we can bounce around on this one too. This is one that I'm sure you've all pondered at some point in time. Some of you more than others, depending on how long you've been in your career. But as we get older, sometimes we ask, if I knew then what I know now, can you think of your days on campus and your days early in your career and think about what you're doing now? And if you knew back then what you know now, would you have done anything differently? Toby? I know, tough question.
Yeah, I, I was a kind of a young, aggressive manager right out of the gate where, discipline was really important, I felt like, back in the 90s when I was originally managing. And, it's really like respecting people, keeping their dignity intact, and making sure that you're really kind of mentoring people into making the right decisions. And I had a turning point in my career about 8 years ago where I went to my boss and I said, hey, I have this opportunity to travel, and I'll be away for 3 weeks, and I will not have a cell phone or email. Is it okay if I go? And he said, I don't know, is it? And I said, well, I'm asking your permission. He says, Toby, you can go if you need to, if you want to. He said, just make sure that your team is well appointed. And my team was well appointed, and I had great people working for me. But since that 3 weeks away, which was 7 or 8 years ago, I realized that you reach a point in your career where it's actually not about you, and it's actually about everybody else under you. And if they're fit and they understand and they are serving the business in the same capacity that you would, then it just makes your job a lot easier. And it's actually very rewarding to see people under you grow. So I took those 3 weeks off, and I was actually just talking to Dan about this earlier. I took those 3 weeks off, and I was completely away, and everyone was able to do my job, and they really kind of understood what my role was because I wasn't there to do it. And I came back to an operation that was actually even more fit to operate on my behalf, and it was kind of a life-changing thing for me. So now I'm like, 5, 6 vacations a year, and
Yeah, sure.
So that's my advice: is just take care of the people under you because they're going to be looking out for your best interest.
My advice, as you guys are all still at Johnson & Wales, is to take advantage of what Johnson & Wales has to offer. A lot of people don't realize all the clubs and organizations that are on campus here, that the university will pay for you to actually go to conferences, pay for your hotel and transportation, and all of that, your registration fee, things that later on you're begging and pleading your employer to pay for. But when you go to these conferences and network and things like that, I always say, if I could go back, it's just, I certainly did my, area and was involved and whatnot, but there's so much more that I did not do that you can look back and say, oh, I wish I did that, or I wish I did that. But the clubs and organizations, they have budgets. I mean, as a student, you're paying for that budget, so you might as well be able to get that experience, actually spending the money and gaining that experience and stuff that you can do right here. And it all comes down to networking when you can go off to these conferences and talk to these different people from God knows where, what walks of life. You never know what that will translate to, whether it's an internship or, to that first job after college. So my piece of advice is just right now, in this classroom, you guys can walk out and join a club, organization, frat, sorority, and, just take advantage of what the university itself has to offer.
Yeah, I did. One thing I would definitely recommend is while you're on campus, I had an unbelievable experience while I was here. I went the Greek life, and I did a lot of fundraising with the government. In fact, one of my fraternity brothers in the back corner, back left. What's going on, Matt? And so we had to me, it taught me a lot of what I took with me in regards to what I do now. A lot of the dealings with the fundraising events, a lot of kind of organizing. You have about 50, 60 guys, and 10 do the work, and it's how do you motivate the others to do the work, right? So for me, it's 100% about academics, but it's also about that social aspect, because to this day, there's a lot of us that are still networking with each other. We've helped each other get jobs. We've helped each other in different cities. And you just never know. So building those relationships early and doing the extras, not just school. I think you have to well-round yourself. And that means any organization, any club. It really, it doesn't have to be a fraternity or sorority. It could be any club or an organization. But the people you meet there, it just takes that with you. And to me, that's really what sets you apart when you go out there, because you start learning life skills then, what really you put into play as you become a leader and you become a director in an area. Really helped me anyway. So that's my advice.
Yeah, well, here's a simple answer. Excel spreadsheets. Definitely lacking in knowledge of how to navigate Excel as you enter the workforce. Obviously, there's a million bajillion things that Excel can do for you, but getting more exposure and practice with the intricacies of Excel, it's going to make a ton of difference. It could make a task take 10 minutes or 2 hours, if you don't know it. So definitely seek out some extra training and practice with Excel, and definitely not kidding there. The other thing that I would say is tweak your perspective on networking. Everybody drills into your head, network, get out there. And we think that means, okay, well, I'm gonna find an awesome job from that, or I'm gonna find a dream job. But at the beginning, it's really just about practicing talking to people and seeing the different personalities that are out there in the industry you think you want to go into, and kind of just navigating those conversations and being uncomfortable for a while. You need that practice to find your voice. So that's what I would say. Maintain that perspective. If you're really nervous about getting out there and talking to professionals or just other people, it's just practice. You're just finding, what actually goes on and what the conversations really are like.
So yeah, I agree. If I knew what I know now back then, I would say network even more, but network the right way. It's not about going to the same bar week after week to get a free drink every now and then. That's not the best way of networking. I did that a couple times. But another thing that I wish I knew back then was how important it'd be to be comfortable speaking in front of others, leading a team, motivating them. Motivating your team, I always look at it like a sports team. You try and motivate them to be the best for that shift. Shift by shift, you want to get better. And if I knew that back then, I think I would have been more successful.
I know we're beating a dead horse at this point, but I'm going to say networking too. And the reason for that is when I graduated back in '09 with my undergrad, I was hard, fast, stubborn about hard work was going to take me to the top alone. And I was going to work my butt off, and I was going to be at the top. And that's not what happened. Politics is something that takes place in corporations and businesses and everywhere, your own family. And that was a really hard thing for me to learn and to understand. And finally, now that I've been in the industry for over 10 years, and networking, going to groups, even with my business, networking and having a conversation with someone can mean the difference between that job promotion. Does your boss like you? Does your boss hate you? you have to worry about whether people like you or not. And I know that's really hard, and we live in a culture and a society that says, oh, you shouldn't care what people think. You should care what people think about you. Plus, you know, the next contract, too, with my business, a conversation with someone could mean the difference between whether I get a contract or not. So networking is huge. Making connections with people are huge.
I wish I knew how small the hospitality industry is. It's insane how connected everyone is, which makes sense because if you think about Johnson & Wales Hospitality School, Penn State's Hospitality School, like everyone is so well connected and everyone knows someone. So for example, like Westin Times Square, I know the revenue director at Westin Times Square, and who knows? He'll go in on Monday, next week or the next time you're in at work and just be like, oh, I met the Expedia account manager for this hotel. It's so crazy how everyone knows someone, and I wish I knew back then to make more of an effort to just say hi to my everyday classmates, because that small impression could go a long way after you graduate, 3 years from now, further down the line, where you really have to think about how does everyone perceive me? What is the person next to me in my classroom? How do they feel about me? What do they think about me? Because that's what they're leaving Johnson & Wales with. That's the impression they're leaving with. So 5 years from now, if you find yourself in an interview with someone, that person who was in the classroom next to you, they're gonna have that stigma of you, that idea of you, and it's up to you whether you're gonna try to change their mind in that interview, or do they already have a positive perception of you. So what you do now in the classroom really dictates how hard you're working down the line, and that even goes to when I was in NSMH, my secretary ended up being a direct partner of mine. And thank goodness we had a great relationship, and that really transferred into our working relationship, where we did go to lunch and we did have drinks and our conversations were positive. So it was so much easier to work with him as opposed to what if we had a bad relationship at school. So yeah, your everyday now, it might seem like nothing, it might just seem like school, but it can have a disastrous or really positive effect later on in life.
My gotcha is utilize your professors. When I was in school, I didn't, for getting a job. I see Matt Samuel posting all the time on LinkedIn, so get a LinkedIn. I wish that I utilized him for, hey, what do you think of this job offer? I just literally had a Venn diagram and did my pros and cons, and kind of maybe called my father and was like, hey, do you think this is a good job, is a good fit or not? So utilize your professors. They have tons of industry knowledge, and they're really a great asset.
Again, networking. You guys are already part of such a large network. Just being honest, I say this to people all the time, you or someone else is paying a lot of money for you to be here, right? You paid for this network. It doesn't end after graduation. You're a part of a club, right? You don't join a country club and not use the pool. There are resources available to you on campus. You can network with people here on campus. Professors will help you, reach out to employers for jobs. And even after graduation, it's such a large alumni network that you're a part of. And those connections that you make while you're here, as other people said, will, transfer outside of school as well in your professional careers. So take advantage of everything that the university offers.
Great answers. So let's talk a little bit about getting a job. So say, for instance, they were going to interview with you, any one of these students, and they sat down in front of you. How much time would you spend on talking to them about their education, about their experience, but also what kind of skill sets do you think in this day and age you folks are looking for in terms of an entry-level employee? And if you could kind of maybe rank these or talk about them specifically, communication skills, negotiation skills, technology skills, creativity, the ability to work in groups. What are some of those skills that are more important than others in terms of who you're looking for in an entry-level job? Toby?
Yeah, all those things are, I think, extremely important, and some may not be acquired just while you're in college. But certainly, when I'm meeting a recent graduate or someone that's still enrolled in Johnson & Wales, I just want to know what they've done with their time here. You know, like what clubs and activities are you a part of? Because, you know, for my job specifically, as being a part of the community is extremely important. You know, I'm answering Facebook requests for reservations, text messages, emails, phone calls, and it, depending on what you're connected in life, is a big indicator of, you know, how productive you're going to be in the workplace. So a lot of these people on this panel talked about networking. Well, that's extremely important, but it also has to do with the drive and energy and passion of a person, because you have to have that. Someone on this panel mentioned earlier that you are responsible for your own name and your own brand. Well, you are. And what you've done while you're in college is an indicator of what you will do for your company. So if you're the type of student that is going to spend your Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays somewhere downtown with a beer in your hand, that's fine once in a while, but you want to make sure that you're contributing to your education on your own. You know, what are you reading? Where are you dining out? Are you dining out just to eat, or are you dining out because you want to dine and you want to have a great experience? Who are your friends? You know, are your friends dining out in great restaurants and offering, offering their intelligence on what's going on in the restaurant industry? Where are you traveling? Are you constantly going to the same vacation destination, or are you mixing it up so that you can understand different cultures and have a culturally enriched background? Because all of those things will come up in interviews and are key indicators as to whether you can identify and relate to a wide array of the general public.
For me, I mean, it really all depends on what level of position you're hiring for. You know, if you're hiring for a director level or an entry-level position, you know, obviously communication, those types of things all are very important, and the resume and the experience and stuff. But as Toby kind of mentioned, the biggest thing I look for in this industry is the passion. I mean, you could teach anybody how to, you know, use a computer, or teach somebody how to, you know, do certain things. But you can't teach passion. If you don't have a passion for this industry, it's going to be very difficult to go very far. When, you know, as was mentioned earlier, you're spending nights, weekends, holidays. I'm with my coworkers more than I'm with my own family. I've missed birthdays and functions and stuff like that because we had a show at the building. And you develop a team and coworkers that become essentially really your extended family. I know everything about my coworkers, and we come in on Mondays. Oh, how is this? How are the kids? How are everybody doing? When bad things happen, we know about it, and we're all there for each other. So having a passion for this industry, to be able to come in, you know, day after day, 7 days a week, or, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row without a day off, you can't teach that. You can't train that. And I always, the first thing I look for in reading the resumes, you know, what their experience is, but do they come off that they actually have a passion for the industry? And I mean, because essentially, you know, a lot of us, you know, I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of us, but, you know, some people don't do it for the money. You know, we do it because it's fun and we enjoy it. The money, to me, is just a bonus. And to me, creating the experiences is what I care about. And I want to make sure that whoever I bring into our team, essentially I'm bringing them into my family. And I want to make sure that it's going to be a good fit. So for me, the number one thing I look for, you know, communication stuff aside, is having a passion for what they're going to be doing.
Great advice, Chris.
That's great. For me, it's funny because this is going to sound very basic. Be on time, be early. I want to kind of see how you interact maybe in the lobby before you're interviewing with me. Look me in the eyes, smile. It sounds funny, but a lot of people don't do the basics, right? So have the confidence. I need to see who you are, because don't forget, we're talking about an entry-level position. You know, everybody, let's pretend everybody interviewing has a degree. So tell me about your internship. Tell me how you contributed. Tell me what they'd say about you. Tell me, be honest. You know, and I just want to kind of get to know you as a person. And the passion is, to me, the number one thing. Passion, creativity, that's going to set you apart. But do the basics. Be professional. Follow up with a nice note afterwards, you know, for the time on the interview. Come prepared. Ask questions. Know about the company you're interviewing with. At least know the basics. I mean, the websites and online. I mean, there's no excuse for not to know, you know, what the position you're applying for. And don't come in and say, you know, that I want to get in my foot in the door, and then within a year I want to be a director. Because that's, you know, don't rush it. Enjoy the time at every position. Like I said earlier, excel, be the best at what you do, whatever that role may be at the time, because your career is very long, and you're gonna get there. Everybody's gonna get there, but you wanna be prepared when you do get there. So just do the basics, be professional, show who you are, and that's really what's gonna set it apart. Again, we're gonna interview 20 people or however many people. Everybody has a degree, so what's gonna make you set apart? And just think about that before you walk into the interview.
Yeah, to expand on Dan's point about having passion, I think it's, you really have to have a desire for the role that you're going for. In terms of the ticketing field, it is way too detailed and way too high stakes financially, and in terms of, listen, I'll be honest, egos, like artists and promoters, they have big, tough, challenging egos that create a lot of stressful days, and when you tie that into them making money or losing money, that's a very big deal. So it's too detailed, like I said, to not have a vested interest in contributing to that bigger picture and giving out a good product to them so that artists and promoters are happy and they make their money, but so that the people buying your venue's tickets have a good experience. And it should be virtually seamless to everybody else because of all the work that you've put in. So if you're indifferent to the process, I would recommend finding something that drives you and really piques your interest. Ticketing and box office world, I don't think is a placeholder field. It's not necessarily a good stepping stone to somewhere else. I think you really have to have an interest in that. And to talk about one of the skills that Professor Eskilsson brought up in communication, and I feel like communication skills is something that we all put on our resume, right? I have good communication skills, but thinking back now, if anybody that interviewed me said, "Oh, I see you wrote here you have good communication skills, how do you know?" And I would have been speechless, which is a really bad thing when you're trying to prove you have good communication skills. So to define that a little bit, it ends up being things like reliability in communication. Do you call people back when they leave you a message in a prompt amount of time? Do you email them back? And when you are writing them an email, do you have typos or not? Do you get to the point? Are you clear and concise? Do you get them the information that they're looking for? And are you courteous on the phone? Do you have an accurate out-of-office message on your email? Do you have a good phone greeting when they leave you a voicemail? Those types of things make a big difference in your interaction with anybody, whether you're actually having that conversation with them or they're getting your voicemail.
So I agree with what everyone just said. I mean, I hire for a lot of servers, bartenders, and hosts because I run a restaurant. And a lot of times I hire people, and when I have the interview, it's more of a general conversation, and we do hit on all the strengths, weaknesses, but mainly I do look for passion. You have to do this for the right reasons. I mean, my restaurant, we're trying to be one of the best cocktail bars in the United States, and if you're not here and ready to work from 2 p.m. to 4 a.m. every day, then you're not doing it for the right reasons right now, because, I mean, my bar, like, we really need you to be passionate about what you do, because it's not always about the money. It's about the education and the desire to be the best.
I agree with what everybody has mentioned so far, especially the communication aspect. When you're speaking with clients, the customer service skills, that's all very important. But integrity, that's something that I find nowadays leadership really lacks. And one of the things that I ask all my interns coming in is, what's the definition of integrity? Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is looking. For everybody's reference in here, in case I ask you that one day. But you would be surprised how many people have no idea what that means. And if you don't know what that means, you really need to get into that, because we're living in a world now where you post things on social media and you're held accountable for what you said. Or, even talking to people in the workplace, how you talk to or with your employees. It's all based on integrity.
Thank you.
I find involvement on campus to be really important. Coming from a sales role, it really is a self-driven role. It's really all about what your output is. You go in every day and it's really up to you how hard you work or if you barely work. So for an entry-level role, if I look on your resume and see that you barely work, then that's usually like a clear indicator as far as what your drive is going to be on a self-driven, and as far as like a self-driven position goes, right? Like I'm not gonna hire someone who didn't do anything on campus or who didn't go above and beyond, because that means once you're hired, you're probably going to do the same thing. And I find that to be really important, as well as branding. What's your report on campus? If I go to a random professor, not just who your references are, what are they going to say about you? Are they going to say that you go the extra step? Are they going to say that you're on your phone the entire class? It really is about what your report is with other people that really either makes or breaks you in the sales industry.
My big piece is just be a genuine human being. I'd rather work with someone that I can stand for extended periods of time. Even if they have zero experience, they're trainable. Obviously, the pedigree information, do you have hotel software experience? Do you come referred? That's huge. But having a conversation as opposed to you're just drilling questions and they're just, kind of trying to remember answers. You want them to feel comfortable and open up more, and then you'll get the most out of them.
The common word is passion. Passion and drive I really look for when interviewing someone for an entry-level position, especially from the hotel side of things. I can teach you the skills. I can't teach you how to be hospitable. I can't teach you how to smile, have a great personality, and connect with guests and associates. That being said, I also look for your internship experience. If you did any internships while you were here on campus, as somebody said, I can teach you the skills, but it shows that you're passionate, that you were seeking these opportunities while you were still a student here on campus is very important. I know that we have the Johnson & Wales JWU Fridays that I mentioned earlier. Really take advantage of those. I know everybody wants to enjoy their time here while they're on campus. You're not going out until 11:30 anyway, so you could work a 3 to 11 o'clock desk shift and still have your college experience, right? So gain that experience on campus, and I do really look for that passion. It all ties together.
Great remarks. We're getting close to the end, but there's one, and not everybody has to answer this, but I'm really curious, because I talk about this, and we talk about the positive things, things they should do, things they should have in their resume, things that they should do for their interview, things that they should prepare themselves for their first job. Does any of you have a story about a really bad situation where somebody really screwed up their resume, their cover letter, they really did a whole bunch of bad things at their interviews? So if you could give them the things not to do as they're preparing for their interview or sending a cover letter or sending a resume, what should they not do?
I think someone mentioned it earlier, but put the ego aside. I think you're graduating from college. There should be no ego, right? You're all, if none of you have work experience, you all have a bachelor's degree, right? When you graduate. Put the ego aside. You're interviewing with someone who is established, and in that half an hour or whatever it is, they're really deciding your fate, right? Your fate is in their hands. So put the ego aside, be open. A lot of times I'll interview a student and they're like, well, I don't want to move there. I don't want to work in housekeeping. I don't want to. Your career is so long. So you need to gain the experience. Your first job out of college is not going to be your dream job. Your second job might not be your dream job. As someone said earlier, you're not going to be a director, a department head, or a general manager right outside of college. It's not going to happen. You need to build a base and really gain the knowledge to get there. Because there's nothing worse than getting a big job and you don't have the experience to back it up, and then you see it all the time with people. You're in a role and then they ultimately fail because they don't have the experience that they need to be in that role, right? You can't just have a big title and not know how to do anything, not know how to do the jobs of people that report to you. So put the ego aside, be open, be flexible. A year after graduation, a year goes so fast. If you never saw yourself in housekeeping in Texas, go to Texas for a year, work in housekeeping, and then go move to wherever you want to move to. A year is so fast. And I think that a lot of students get tied up with thinking that they're getting a job after graduation that is not their dream job in their dream destination. You will get there. You got to put in the time.
Right, Mayor? Go ahead. No.
Don't lie. We know, we know when you're lying. Once, when I was here, when I was an undergrad, there was someone who lied about being an NSMH, and they didn't even know what the acronym stood for, and it was a recruiter who was sponsoring NSMH. So they're very involved with NSMH, and they were obviously asking the right questions to probe to see if they were actually telling the truth. And then I remember the recruiter coming to me after and asking me, like, is this student part of NSMH? And I very honestly told them no. And they really burnt that bridge because of that, whereas the person could have just been honest and there could have been an opportunity there. Don't lie. Your body language shows when you're lying. You look uncomfortable, and that generally leads to probing questions and ultimately a burnt bridge.
Somebody else? Nightmares? Toby?
When we ask you where you worked and you tell us, and then we say, how is that? Don't speak illy of your previous employer, okay? Don't do that, because you'll do the same thing to us.
Great advice. All right, I think we're at the point where we're going to start to wrap up and then get to questions out here. So answer one of the two of these. So in closing, 2 sentences to give your students advice, give our students advice. First, starting your career, 1 sentence, and how would you start your career, or 1 sentence in developing a long and successful career, or did you have an aha moment while you were at school or early in your career that said, I know I'm in the right place and this is what I want to do? So, Sean, we'll start with you. Either 2 sentences about what they should be thinking or an aha moment.
Going back to what I said, just be open to anything. Right after graduation is just the beginning of your career. You know, we're going to be working a very long time. You know, your career is going to be 30, 40 years long. Be open to the experience and be nice to people, right? I said this earlier. People will always remember how you made them feel. So be nice, and it will go far.
Learn from your failures. If you blow up an interview, that's totally fine. It's not a failure. You're winning or you're learning. So in that scenario, you learned.
Utilize your resources now. When I interviewed with Expedia, I went to career development and I did mock interviews, and I learned that there is a very strategic calculation that you're supposed to answer your interview questions. It's SMART goals. I mean, just like that process, they teach you that at career development. And you need to utilize your resources so that when you answer your questions, it's how we expect you to answer your questions.
You're the only person that can limit what you do in this world. So if you have a dream, if you have a thought of what you want to do and where you want to go for it. There's nothing to lose.
I think I had my aha moment when I was in 5th grade, and I said, I want to be an NBA basketball player or a restaurant owner. And I stopped growing around 6th grade. So that was a real aha. Let's go into restaurants.
I think my aha moment, and it continues to this day, whenever I see a sold out arena, stadium, theater, whatever, I just think that there's few sites that match that. And knowing what I know since graduating and having my career that I've had, all the hard work that goes into that, and all the different people and all the different little jobs that spend months and months prior to, say, a concert going on sale, throughout its life cycle, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's thousands of people in your building and they're having a fantastic time. So I will never get sick of looking at a sold out show anywhere, because it makes everything worth it. We are not sold out here today, so call your friends.
So, for me, it was what I said earlier. It's just, have fun along the way. Don't rush things. I know a lot of people have all mentioned it's a long career. Just enjoy what you're doing at that time. Do the best you can be at it, because again, that goes back to your brand, your reputation. Gain as much as knowledge as you can. I mean, the industry we're in, it's a fun industry. It's all about, the client experience, your coworker experience. So take the time to enjoy it. Don't rush it. You're all gonna get there. Don't worry about salary right off the bat. You're all gonna get there. It all catches up. So just enjoy your time along the way.
I always look back and I would just say, you know, Johnson Wells is giving you guys the foundation, the fundamentals to your career. Any entry-level person that I hire or any entry-level job you guys go for, it's all the next step of your education. You're not going to come right out of college and know everything about the industry. So I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask your supervisor questions. If you see something, you know, each company, each corporation has their different procedures and policies for how they do things. Ask questions why they do it this way, or ask questions, you know, along the way, because your first job out of college is just the next level of your education. You're not expected to know everything right out of college, so don't be afraid to ask questions, because I don't expect you to know everything.
Yeah, so obviously nice and kind, but you know, if you're a gentleman, be a gentleman, and if you're a lady, be a lady, and just respect the people along the journey and relax. Everything will fall into place. Be passionate and have a great time with what you're doing.
Thank you. Before we go to questions, please thank this panel for their fantastic, candid remarks and advice. We'll open it up to the audience. Somebody must, when's the next time you're going to have 75 years of experience sitting in front of you? So do we have microphones or just loud voices? What's that? In the back. You got to stand up and use your outdoor voice, please. Great question. Anybody?
Yeah, so I think it's about, you know, when running a team, it's all about accountability, right? So what you have to do with, you know, you got to be firm but fair. You got to be friendly but not familiar. Two things I've learned along the way with your entire team. And really, as you develop and grow, that is your role. So you make the time for it. So for me, not only the 14 people on my catering and CS team, but the rest of the hotel, it's my responsibility as a leader to take the time. You know, the old thing, open door. Of course, it's an open door. Anytime you make the time for it. But it's about holding people accountable. You train everybody to the same expectation. It's okay if you make a mistake, but then we talk about that. You know, it's a conversation. It's immediate feedback. And then if you see it repeat, and then I question myself. Did I teach them the right way? Did I explain it the right way? People learn in different ways. So once I go through all that, then it comes down to the accountability. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not a right fit, and it's okay. They might be great in another department, in some cases another industry. But it comes down to accountability, and again, training, being firm but fair and friendly but not too familiar in the workplace. For me.
Great answer. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I was going to say, just have basic conversations with your employees. We're all people. We like sports. We have hobbies. Just talk about the basics with people and with your employees or your team. That kind of breaks down the barrier of the boss versus the employee. They kind of relax a little bit around you, and you can also understand what makes them tick. Which is the motivating factor of, you know, are they going to be promoted? Are they interested in being promoted? You can have those harder conversations later on if you can have those simple conversations up front.
Anybody else like to answer that?
Also, setting the standard. We're all very different people. We all communicate very differently. We all digest information very differently. So I find that just being very open and honest and letting them who are you as a person? How do you prefer to process information? Whether it's on the employee side, whether it's on the manager side, it's really important to just be self-aware of who you are and how do you prefer to work, or how do you work the best, and letting your manager know or letting your employees know that this is how I work optimally, and this is how you're going to get the best version of me, and hopefully that then translate into a really positive but also a really hard-working relationship further down the line.
And I'll just add to that, to me it's also just keeping an open dialogue. If there's a situation with an employee, I always say keep me in the loop on things, especially if, you know, our box office manager's having an issue with whoever is on the other end for the artist building the show. You know, if they keep me in the loop of some issues or concerns that have come up, then I could be their, you know, biggest advocate and stand by them when something goes down. But I also, I just listen and talk. I mean, I have weekly meetings with all of my staff to know what's going on in their department. And I always tell them, I'm not perfect. If you have an idea or a way we could do things better, I'll listen to you. Obviously, being part of a corporation, we have corporate policies and procedures for certain things, but I always say, we're all a team. We're all here to work together. And, some people have come to me. We've done something a certain way for 3 years, and somebody comes in and is like, I think we could do it this way. And through that conversation, through the dialogue, it's like, yeah, maybe there is a way we can kind of tweak this a little bit. So for me, it's all about just communication. I mean, by the time if I got to a point where you had to put your foot down and kind of take a stern approach, then to me, I look at what could I have been doing a week ago or 2 weeks ago to prevent that situation from escalating to that point. So for me, I just recommend dialogue.
I just want to go back to one quick thing. I think everybody here, and I'm not sure if there's a course on it, or if not, definitely read books about it, but emotional intelligence. I know some of the panel mentioned being self-aware, but emotional intelligence, that's one of those things that separates the true leaders, the people that get promoted versus the people that don't. So if you don't know much about emotional intelligence, definitely it's about you being self-aware about who you are and then how you relate and communicate with groups of people, teams. So definitely read some books. I don't know, there's probably YouTube things out there now. Anything you can take on emotional intelligence is going to help you in the workplace.
Excellent remarks. Did that answer your question? Yes. Who else? Somebody. Stand up, please.
Good morning. Do you have any advice for recent graduates on negotiating salary when you get that first job or first promotion?
Anybody?
When you're a new graduate, you're an entry-level position. I think that everybody is just trying to get a job. And if you're applying for a job with a good company, they are going to offer you a comparable salary based off of job duties and whatever geographical location you will be working, right? Because cost of living is different in different places, so salaries will fluctuate for the same position based on where you live. And then when you're getting promoted, you need to know your limits, right? If you work for a big organization, you'll know a minimum and a maximum, and then you could fall somewhere in between. For Marriott, for example, the salary ranges are public knowledge to us, so we do know what the ranges are. There are budget constraints and whatnot, so know what you're going into, and you have to have experience to back it up. You can't just say you want to make all this money and you don't really have the experience to back up that salary. Nobody's going to make a lot of money and not be good at what they do, right? You need to be good at what you do. And as someone said, the salary will follow. I wouldn't be so focused on money right now. Take your time. The salary will come. And you also don't want to outprice yourself, right? Because if you go in really aggressive early and you get a little bit more than maybe everybody else, then you're going for your next job and someone might say, well, he makes too much money or she makes too much money, and you're either gonna have to take a step back or they'll go with somebody else. So just right now, I wouldn't focus so much, this is for everybody, on the salary. The salary will come. Again, your careers are very long. You will make money. None of us do this because we don't make money. We all like what we do. But I hope that kind of answers your question.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yeah, so definitely cross-reference it as well on Glassdoor.com. I would say, the answer to that, I would just say is industry. It's kind of a safe number. Yeah, I want to make industry. But then when you cross-reference it, if they really lowball you, then you'll kind of see that, and you'll be like, are you sure based on the greater Boston area, it seems like, it'd be indicative of assistant manager would make more. And then when salary is taken into account, also consider that there's benefits as opposed to hourly and, insurance, all those things. I'm 26 now, so I'm obviously off my parents. So you have to take those into account.
Great answer. Anybody else like to answer that? Go ahead, Toby.
I think if you have a job offer with a salary expectation that you're not 100% comfortable with, it's okay to ask what the range is too. And if you are going to accept that salary, it's okay to ask the question of okay, when will my first financial appraisal occur, and what should I expect if I'm exceeding your expectations? So I think the more transparent you are about asking questions about your salary, the more transparent the company will be. So my company has full transparency on everybody's pay grades, probably similar to Marriott. But if you're unsure of that, it's more than likely okay that you just ask that question so that you kind of gain some confidence as to what's going on in the company, and as you do climb the career ladder, what you'll be looking at.
Great question. A couple more. Can Can you stand up so everybody in the back can hear you?
Huh?
Can you stand up so everybody in the back can hear you?
So one thing that I wanted to ask you guys, I know you mentioned you work weekends, holidays, whatever. I know you said that you have missed birthdays, family events. You work from 2 in the afternoon, 4 in the morning. I just wanted to ask you guys, how do you guys find that balance between work life and a social life? And is it something that you find really hard to do, especially being a recent graduate? That's something that I worry about going into an industry that I know I'm going to be working long hours. So I'm just kind of wondering how you guys do that.
Great question. Tony?
There's nothing like having dinner on a Wednesday night in a half-occupied restaurant. Your service will be better. You'll enjoy it more. When I do have a Saturday and Sunday off, which is infrequent, I do take Sundays off, but when I do have a weekend off, I find myself wanting to be quiet and kind of alone on a Saturday because the rest of the world is, busy. And it's a little bit of a lifestyle change probably in the beginning, but you actually just really get used to it. I could not do 9 to 5 Monday through Friday at this point. No, I really enjoy the tranquility of a weekday and, a Sunday afternoon off.
And just to add to that, fresh out of college, I was working 7 days a week. I was living at my office, sleeping at my desk, because I wanted to learn as much as I can. I wanted to prove I could do a good job. But as time goes on and looking back on it, it's finding that balance. That Sunday when there might not be a concert, why am I sitting at my desk? It's whatever I'm doing really could wait till Monday. So it's at the beginning, you're trying to do a good job, you're trying to prove yourself, you're trying to exceed any expectation anybody has for you. But, in time, you'll learn what that balance is and really what can wait till Monday, what really isn't a pressing issue. And that's kind of how I found that kind of balance to balance things out.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar, but as you grow in your career in the beginning, a lot of the jobs may be hourly, so they're going to probably limit you for budget reasons why it's 40 hours a week. But do the extras. But again, get rid of that mindset that the hotel industry is this crazy hours, because it does balance itself out, especially as you progress in your career. But let me clue you in. Years ago, when I first got out, I'd get emails or texts from my friends saying, "Oh, you make about $3 an hour if you take all the number of hours you work," and they're all laughing at me, and we're doing this. But now let me clue you in. Every industry is working long hours. So it's not just us. And if you're enjoying what you're doing and you're putting yourself in the right spot, it goes by so fast. It's not like you're working those days. But yeah, sometimes I have to work nights and weekends, being in catering events, of course. But when you develop a good team, I don't work every single weekend. It's about developing. Now, the first year I was there, I was there pretty much all the time because I was trying to set the standards, relay my expectations. But now when you develop a good team and you put the time into your team, that will actually help your life balance.
It's not forever. We do in the hotel industry, we do work a lot nights and weekends, but part of being a leader is if your team can't operate when you're not there, if my team can't perform when I'm there, I'm doing something wrong, right? So you do find balance, and we all love what we do, and you just have to prioritize, right? Coming right out of college, I see people all the time, it's I just want to watch the football game on Sunday. Well, you're going to work on Sunday probably, and you can't watch the football game every Sunday, but, it will balance out. You will find that balance. And I know we were joking, but it's nice not having a line at the supermarket on a Tuesday morning. And luckily for me, I married someone who's also in the industry, so we both work a lot, so it works for us. But as the years go by, you do find that balance, and you do learn how to step back, and can I wait till Monday? I'll answer my emails in the morning, and then I'll put my phone to the side so I could actually spend time with my friends and my family. So it's not forever, and you do find a balance.
I might be the only alumni up here that actually did have a 5-day work week when I graduated, and that's because I made sure that I went into the industry and I got that for myself. There are jobs out there. Contracted food services, where I started out. Urest is a division that has all kinds of corporate contracts that only go Monday through Friday, and you're serving people for lunch typically Monday through Friday. Same things with college and university food services. So if you want that, it's out there. But it's also in what you value. I value my personal time. I value health and wellness. I like working out and doing yoga and going for a walk and hiking. And I think that if that's something that you value, look for that balance. Look for that quality of life in the job that you take. And you have to prioritize. I think now in my career, going to all these networking events at night, I have less time for informal social interactions than I did 5 years ago. So I have to plan them into my calendar, which it stinks, but you have to plan those things into the calendar.
For this perspective that my first job out of college was the crazy event schedule life. It just depended on when we had shows and when we didn't, and I never thought that I would be in a role or much less enjoy a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 desk job type of thing. But that's what I have now. So I've seen both sides of it, and listen, I love the Monday through Friday. I love not having weekends where I have to work, but if there's jobs out there like Tara was alluding to, that you can greatly impact the industry and the part of the industry that you love and not have a crazy schedule. If it's just not a fit, it's just not a fit. Don't waste your time, right? Somebody mentioned earlier, find out early what you do and don't like, and that's really important. So experience it. You might not be as crazy of a lifestyle as you think, but if it is and you really want those holidays and nights and weekends back, then look for something else, slightly different, but that you can still have an impact. They're out there.
I think we have time for one more question. In the front here. Well, we'll do two quick ones, and you're right after her. We'll do two. Go ahead. You're up. No, you're up. Sorry.
I'm curious, as someone from second class and everything that's going on within modern society, what do you as employers do to help people feel more accepted in the workplace?
Great question. Anybody?
For us, it all starts with the culture piece with human resources, whether it's through the orientation. It's all the same. So we have various conferences, especially with what's going on in today's day and age. We do a couple conventions. There's a couple ones that, you do transgender bathrooms. You're open to it, and there's ways to address it. Sometimes it's not sir or madam. There's ways that, so I guess what we do is we train on the culture, and we train that it's okay to ask questions. So it's today's business. It's all about, respecting all the different cultures and all the different preferences. And again, it's just, I think our industry is one of the best industries when it comes to that, because I think the people you work with is such a diverse group of people. We work with people from around the world of all types, genders, everything, you name it. So I think in hospitality, you'll find that it's, to me, a good guide of what it should be like at all the workplaces.
For me, what we've been doing is, I think a lot of it comes down to just education with the staff. We have staff that are nearing retirement age that might, 30 years ago or 20 years ago, said things and made comments and stuff like that might have been more accepted than it was today. And then we have new employees that we're bringing in that are, gender neutral. They don't identify as a male or female, and all sorts of different, areas of what's going on in today's, world, if you will. So it's just educating all the staff across the board, from top to bottom, on, how to talk to people, how to be pleasant. Fortunately, we work in the theater, so we're, generally more open to different people and differences and things like that. We're all a very loving theater community. But you have staff that need to be educated, and I think the big thing is now just having companies spending the time, spending the money to actually host seminars, bring in people that can actually teach people on what is going on and how to properly identify with people and connect with people.
Comes from the top down, right? So Expedia had to essentially blast out a form of communication, whereas our main focus right now is women empowerment, women in the VP, making sure that there's an even amount of men and women on the VP level and above, making sure that C-suite employees do have women in the workplace. We did have our CEO come out and check themselves and say, we've realized that our current situation isn't inclusive. We don't have a lot of women at that level. So once they essentially blasted that communication out to the entire company, it was clear to all of us that this is a focus, this is an opportunity area, as well as more flexible work schedules, being that Expedia competes in the tech space. So with Amazon, Google, and a lot of those companies that we compare ourselves to, there's a lot of focus on flexible days. So not working from home more on Fridays or whenever you just need to leave the office, just leaving the office and not having to answer to someone or having to defend that because they see it as right. But again, it comes from the top down and making sure that that communication is aligned, especially at a worldwide company, everywhere, where everyone's on the same message.
Last question.
In building your careers along, you talked about how you traveled and moved from job to job, and you also tried new areas. When did you feel that you received adequate experience in one position and knew that it was time to move on to the next?
Great question. Anyway.
I think you'll just know when the time is right. If you're no longer challenged on a daily basis and you start getting into the whirlwind of, you start getting into a routine and everything is always the same. We work in an industry that's always evolving. Sometimes, in your current position, you get a routine, and after a couple years, you start maybe to get a little bit bored, and you'll know when the time is right that it's time for you to challenge yourself and do something else.
Who else?
Start, if you're feeling, to Sean's point, a little impatient, just look to your manager or look at what they're doing on an everyday basis and ask for some of that responsibility, or take that step into learning another role that you're curious about and see if it really does fit your preferences, or how do you, just like your everyday. But you have to essentially take the step into asking, hey, what do you do every day? Can I have a one-on-one with you? Tell me about your everyday, and how can I just take something off your plate? Or I'm really interested in the marketing side. Can I have a one-on-one with them and see what they're doing every day? And that would usually let you know if you're ready for either to move in flat organization and move to a different department, or to move up.
I wasn't really ready for my jobs. I didn't know I was ready, but I wanted the job. And I had a really strong support group of, my network, who all believed in me when I took on any role I took on. I remember, I was going from Capitol Grill to Del Frisco's, and Del Frisco's is a $20 million restaurant with 200 employees, and I'm talking about like 1,000 covers, $120 a head, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But my friends and people who have worked with me before, and my professors from Johnson & Wales, everyone was very supportive of me, and that really helped give me the confidence to go do that job.
As you can see, very experienced, very successful, very busy people. So please thank them for coming to campus and giving us their information. Thank you very much. Great job.